Hey, so it's been interesting because this concept of self care, boundaries, setting healthy, boundaries is the word we keep coming back to, right? But really kind of taking care of yourself keeps coming up a lot. And it's kind of interesting to me because it's February. And so we have Valentine's Day coming up. And so this whole idea of love and it really started a couple of weeks ago. I had Jen Bassman on the Tara's Voice Interesting People Irrelevant Conversations, and she really shifted how I think of self care. So if you haven't listened to that episode, it was fantastic. I felt like it just gave me this whole new viewpoint on self care. Then I got invited to speak at the Self Care Social, which is happening in New Jersey. It's going to be happening in Monmouth County on the 22nd. So if anybody's interested in that, I can get you some info. I can put the details in my comments. And then just ironically, tomorrow's Hey Girl You Can class is on boundaries. And so I really was like, hey, this keeps coming up a lot. So in our community, we do a grow session once a month, and it's a class to either grow you or grow your business. And so this month is really about growing ourselves in order to be able to grow our business. So I kind of want to share with you just, excuse me, just a kind of couple of thoughts on this because this topic keeps coming up of boundaries in all of these different places. And so I'm like, all right, this is clearly something that's uh, in the energy in the field for a lot of women. And I really think that being able to set boundaries, it's about protecting our own energy, but we struggle, I think, a lot of times as women to do this without guilt. I have literally coached over 1,000 women in the course of my career. And this is something that I see over and over again. And I experience, right, that when we set these boundaries, we feel guilty. And learning how to be able to protect our energy, set the boundaries, but without feeling guilty is really important because there's one thing to say, okay, set a boundary, make sure you're really clear on your boundaries. But if you feel bad about it all the time, right? That's not really going to work. And this could be everything from, boundaries with our career, with our job. I know how many of you guys, ended up working home remote, and it was interesting to me. I've always worked at home. Okay. So when I started my first business at 20, it was a home-based business. And so I've built my entire career working at home. There's been very few times. There was one season when I was going through my divorce. I took a part-time job. It was 2 days a week. And it was during a time I was trying to get my life back together that I actually had to leave my house. So I always worked at home. And I remember when the pandemic hit and a lot of people started moving into their homes, right, to be able to work. And I thought, well, this is just going to be a dumpster fire because when I started to learn to work at home, I had really strong mentors in place and they supported me in learning how to set boundaries in working at home. Where the average American just got thrown at home, they were working on their kitchen table with kids running around and being like, figure it out. And I think we saw for a lot of people, it actually increased their stress and their mental load and the guilt. And how do you balance all of this, right? And nobody was teaching them how to set these boundaries. It also affects relationships, right? And this could be relationships with extended family. I hear women talk about this a lot. If you're on any of the moms groups in Facebook, about dealing with in-laws and their own mothers, or, feeling guilty about setting those boundaries. I think it also just, affects our ability to grow into the best version of ourselves. And so I think it's a very important topic for women. There's some research that shows that women suffer from burnout more than men do. And I think potentially this can be because we do struggle with setting these kind of healthy boundaries. And so that's what we're going to talk about tomorrow in the Hey Girl You Can Grow class, because it's not really about shutting people out or being really strict or rigid, but it's about that when we set appropriate boundaries, then we can create space for what really matters to us, for our real priorities. Because when we can protect our energy, then we're able to say yes to the best, right? The stuff that we're going to love. And so we're going to talk in this class about really identifying like where we need boundaries. And I think all of us need this in different places. So some of us might be really good at being able to set a boundary in our career, but maybe not so good with our family members. Or the opposite, right? You're really good at setting those boundaries at home and without other people and in your community, but when it comes to your job, it becomes a little bit more challenging. And so we're going to kind of identify where are we struggling in that so that we can shift our mindset around them, and begin to really recognize where are these energy drains, because I think it really is an energy thing more than anything else, right? We all have a certain amount of energy. We wake up in the morning with a certain amount of energy, and we kind of know this. Research talks about decision fatigue. I don't know if you guys have heard that. I want to just make sure to see here. I want to open up the chat. if you're watching the replay and you have comments, I would love to hear what they are. So I do go back and listen to all the chat the whole time. So I just want to go back and open that up. Um, but now I lost my train of thought. How many of you guys have that happen? Like I'm at this age where like I start talking and all of a sudden I just lose my train of thought of what I was thinking. We were talking about energy and energy drains. And I think what happens is when we don't have these boundaries, we have a certain amount of energy that we wake up with in the morning. So there's this concept, if you, and let me know if you've heard of this, it's just decision fatigue, that we wake up and we have a certain amount of energy. And then as we make decisions throughout the day, and that's everything from like what I'm going to wear to what I'm going to eat to what I'm going to prioritize on my desk. We use up our ability to make all these decisions. And so we drain our energy, and then our decision making becomes less effective. And I think it's the same thing with kind of our boundaries. When we don't set these boundaries, we have a certain amount of energy. And if we're constantly extending it, then we just don't have the energy anymore for the things that we really want to have energy for. And so this is where it's for our own mental health, our well-being, and our success, for our family success. We really need strategies to set boundaries, and that's not just saying no, right? I mean, even that for a lot of people, and we're going to talk about this tomorrow. We're going to do a deep dive. I'm actually going to be giving you a whole list of ways that you can say no that are like soft no's. So if you're somebody who really struggles with like, I have a hard time saying no, I feel guilty, I feel bad, I don't want, to be judged, or that's difficult for me to do. I'm going to really equip you with like, here's all the ways that you can do that in a way that's a very soft, non-confrontational way. You can actually even print them out and put them on your desk if you need to. Because again, like there's this idea of, well, just say no, right? But I think that when we have important relationships in our lives and when we have, valuable connections, we don't want to just sever those connections because we're saying no. We need to do that in a way that is authentic, that is transparent, that is we're being upfront with our needs, but in a way that also protects those relationships, right? And so we're going to be learning how to do that, kind of set these boundaries where you really feel empowered. You don't feel like restrictive. Um, and so we kind of want to break this cycle of looking at our schedule and saying, oh my gosh, there's all this stuff on here. How did I end up committing to all of this? I don't want to be even doing this. How many times, and this does not happen to me so much anymore, but before I really learned how to do this, I would find myself sometimes looking at an event or looking at something and going, I really don't want to do this. I don't want to go here. Why did I say yes to this? Now I'm committed. I can't get out of this. And so I've developed some tools that I use that stop that from happening. And so now I really don't find that anymore on my schedule anymore. Um, and so I'm going to give you these tools. I'm going to give you these strategies, so the things that I use that have worked for me, particularly juggling a business and family and all of those other things, but also so there's no guilt, because that was my big thing, is I always would feel guilty, or I'd feel like I was disappointing people, or I would feel like, well, if I say no to this, then maybe they won't ask me again. And in the future, it might be something I really want to be part of. And I'm also going to be sharing with you some real just transparent stories from what has happened to me by not having boundaries and how I was able to make those shifts. And we're going to kind of go over some, particularly with this burnout thing, because that's been a big struggle for me. And I think a lot of times when you're setting a big goal and you're going for, something exciting, it's really easy to get into this burnout because we've almost been conditioned to believe that if I'm going for a big goal or if I'm really working on something, that burnout is kind of inevitable, right? It's just part of the process. And I don't believe that anymore. I used to believe that. I don't believe that anymore. I think what happens is that when you actually hit the goal, you can't even enjoy it because you're kind of like exhausted falling over the finish line. And one of the things that I'm learning with myself is that because I'm kind of this high achiever, we're always looking for that next achievement, but then those achievements are this much of the time, right? And the work is this much of the time. And if we can't be happy in this much of the time, then this doesn't mean very much. And so if we're just burnt out when we get here, that's a problem, right? And so, there's things that people talk about that are, basic tools to avoid burnout, like, there's this concept of like an energy jar. If you for everything that you take out of your jar, like if you pictured you have like a jar of energy, right? So for everything that you have to take out that drains your energy, you put something back in. It's kind of like a mental game. You say, okay, what can I put back in that jar? There's things like taking breaks throughout the day, and that could just be even getting up from your desk and taking a quick walk, or having a cup of tea, or reading a chapter in a book, just to kind of give yourself a little micro break of what's happening. So kind of these little small things that you can do. But I'm going to teach you some other ones that are a little lesser known, that I think are a little more fun, that allow us to kind of get out of that burnout. Things that to me, it's more than just getting up and having a walk. It's like, how do I structure my life so that I'm not exhausted and I'm not burning out and I'm not burning the end at both ends. Um, and so I'm going to be sharing with you guys some real practical strategies that you can use. But I think this is an important conversation for women about how to set boundaries. So I'm curious. And again, if you're watching, like, is this an area that you struggle in? Do you feel like I'm really good? I feel like I can say no. Or do I feel like I do find myself over committed, overextended, saying yes to things I wish I hadn't said yes to? Because remember, and this is one of my mentors, as she always taught that if you invest time in one area, then you're taking time away from another area, right? So every time you say yes to something, that means that you're saying no to something else, even if you don't know what the no is yet, right? Because we only have 169 hours each a week. That's it. That's all we get. And so every hour that you're invested in doing something, that means that's an hour you can't be doing something else, right? And so sometimes we say yes to something and then we turn around and you find out later, wow, now that I'm committed to that, I can't say yes to this that I wish I had said yes to. So that's where we start to have problems, particularly when you're going, I only said yes because I felt obligated, or I only said yes because I had to. And, years ago, I was in the State and Public Affairs Committee. I was on the junior league, and I really loved what I was doing. I felt like I was specifically working within the domestic violence task force. I was able to testify at the New Jersey legislature for some new bills that were being passed for women who had been sexually assaulted. And I was able to use some of my personal experience with domestic violence to help with that, and to be able to speak and to testify. And I felt like I was using a season of my life that had been so horrific and using it as a platform to do good. Like, it was almost like there was a purpose to have to go through that domestic violence. So it was something I really felt very strongly about. I had an opportunity to go down to Washington, meet with legislators, go to the legislative dinner. But it was also a season when I was launching my book, and I was doing my TEDx, and I was like juggling a ton of different things. And I just felt like I was being pulled in every single direction. And I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but I literally felt like there was just every part of me was being pulled in a direction. I had my daughter, and we were still dealing with stuff with her and her medical stuff. And I had my full-time direct sales business, and that was taking a lot of time. And then I had the State and Public Affairs Committee and all that volunteer work. And then I was trying to write this book, and then I was trying to, speak at all these places. And I just, and then still keep my own, personal life. And I just felt mentally exhausted. And I remember thinking, like, something has to go. And here was the thing, all of the things were good. It's easy when you look at your schedule and you go, this isn't something good. This isn't something that brings me joy. This isn't something that I enjoy. That's easy to take off your calendar, right? It's harder when you go, well, I love all these things and they're all important and they all matter. And they did. I love doing all of them. But I had to really step back, evaluate those priorities, and set boundaries of what was all good, but best, and work the way down. Right. And so, unfortunately, that was one of the things that I chose to step away from after like really evaluating all the other options and looking at where I was at. And so being able to do that and not feeling guilty. And so this is where tomorrow I'm going to be supporting our members. Now, if you are a Hey Girl You Can member, this is part of your membership. So because when you're live, of course, then there's more interaction and you can ask questions at the end, and you get a little bit more of that, mentoring and coaching. If you can't join live, it'll be in your portal. You'll have access to that. You'll have access to um, the strategies to prevent burnout, and you'll have like a sheet that'll have all of those on there, so you can actually print that out, work through that, and you'll have all of the kind of gentle no's, the soft nails, and you'll be able to print that out too. If you're not part of our community, Like, I keep questioning why not? Why not? It is $8 a month. You get grandfathered in at your rate. So as the rate goes up, which will be happening soon, you won't have to worry about that because you'll be in at your $8 and you'll get classes like this every single month. And here's the thing, guys, I have invested tens of thousands of dollars over 27 years traveling around the country, going to all of these classes and workshops and developments and getting certifications. And during COVID, I spent so much time getting so many certifications and taking all these classes. I want to shorten that gap for you. I want to shorten that gap from where you are to where you want to be. And you don't need to take 27 years the way I did. I take the best things that I learned and I give them to you. The things that really moved the needle for me, the things that really made a difference in my life and in my business. And I feel so strongly about equipping women with these tools. And that's why we have the Hey Girl You Can community, because I think you need to be in a community with women who've got your back, who are going to support you and have mentorship from people who have been there, done that, and can shorten that gap for you. Okay. So I invite you, you have time between now and tomorrow to get part of our community. Just go to heygirlyoucan.com. I will put it here in the chat so you can find it. I probably should have picked a QR code. Maybe I will do that next time to make that a little bit easier so you can scan, but it's literally just heygirlyoucan.com. You can click on the membership link, find out about membership, get started, and then you'll have access to this and work with me tomorrow and bring your questions, bring your concerns about your boundaries. It's live so that we can do that. So we have that time for that interaction. And let's get you on a place in a track where you feel really good. We're still kind of in the beginning of the new year. It's only the beginning of February. You can totally have a transformation year this year, but you can't keep doing the same things, right? And if you're headed towards burnout or you have a big goal, that is not where you want to be. You want to stop that now. So I'm excited to work with you tomorrow. If you're part of our community, please show up with your pen and your paper. We're going to have a great time. You're going to feel so empowered, so equipped to make small shifts that are going to have massive change. So I was putting this whole class together this weekend. I cannot wait to share it with you. Really, really excited. Even some of the phrases, I'm like, these are good. This is stuff that that I have used, that I have practiced, that have really helped me be able to say no to stuff and not feel bad. So I can't wait to share these with you. So I hope you guys have a great day. And if there are particular types of classes that you're looking for or places that you want to grow, and here's the thing, I'm not an expert in everything, right? But I know someone in our community that is. And so we can always bring in that expert person to share and to pour into you guys and to give you the support and the training and what you're looking for. So thank you for being part of Hey Girl You Can. If you're not, come join us. You got about 24 hours